Let's talk about what virtual machines are in the Azure environment. First of all, they're going to give you compute on demand. Now, first of all, that just sounds great. What does that mean? Well, it means that you only have to use them when you need to use them. I do a lot of development, testing, frankly, just playing around in Azure. And what makes it really cost effective for me is that when I want to use a virtual machine that I've created, I can spin that virtual machine up. And when I'm done with it, I then shut that down and deallocate that virtual machine. And it doesn't cost me anything. It may cost me a little bit of storage, but that's really cheap in the Azure environment. So you have this on-demand computing. You have this ability to scale. Now, my example is pretty simplistic and certainly not a production type example, but in a production environment, you have the ability to scale, not only up and down, changing the size of your virtual machine, but also out and back in. So as load increases, you have the ability to, whether it's manually or automatically, scale your virtual machines. So you create more virtual machines for heavier load, and then as that load abates, you can then scale it back in to have fewer machines that are available to handle maybe a normal load. So very capable ability within your Azure environment. Right? Now, this is compatible with both Windows Server and Linux. I've actually spent the last couple, well, not quite the last couple months, but not long ago, spent a couple months really just focusing on Linux in Azure, and I've been surprised at what an effective story there is there in terms of being able to run Linux virtual machines like you would run them on-premise, being able to do that in the Azure environment. Of course, you can run Windows virtual machines in the Azure environment. That goes without saying. Now, Azure itself, under the hood, is based on Hyper-V. And in fact, it's kind of cool on the IT Pro / admin side to watch as functionality ratchets up between the Azure environment and the on-premise environment. And a lot of what you see coming into the on-premise environment is actually coming from the Azure environment now as they really start to evolve, or really don't start, they've been evolving the Hyper-V environment in Azure to handle this just absolutely massive scale compute capability, but then taking that same capability and then allowing that to be made available in the on-premise environment as well. Very cool. Now, because of this, you can actually take virtual hard disks and transfer them back and forth. So if you've got a custom application, a custom Windows application that involves a high degree of integration with a specific virtual machine, you can actually take that and move it directly as is into the Azure environment and just spin it up in Azure instead of spinning it up on premise. Very cool capability, and something that is actually relatively easy to do, and also something that has been built into some tools and will continue to be built into tooling so that the administrators can start to manage that much more seamlessly as well.